snow blowers and then just do the sidewalks. It works out well.
That was a busy selectmen's meeting, huh?
Yeah.
Select board.
Yep. They all seem to be nowadays.
Yeah. How do you think Shelby feels about some of these Being 8:08, we'll call this meeting of the Municipal Building Committee to order for February 27th, 2025. Do we have anybody here for open forum? Seeing none, I guess we can go to reviewing past minutes. We have 3 to approve. We have we'll go December 19th, 2024, January 8th, 2025, which is a joint meeting with the Municipal Building Committee and the Select Board, and then we have January 23rd, 2025. Do we have a motion to approve these minutes?
Motion to approve.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Do we have any comments or corrections?
I will vote for the first two, but not the solid.
Okay, so Pete will abstain from the last one, which would have been January 23rd. Okay, seeing no questions or anything, all those in favor? Unanimous and 1 abstention on the 23rd from Peter. All right, new business, I think. Jen?
There was an echo, so.
Yep.
Sorry. Good morning. Hi, Jen Kirkland, Recreation Director. I'm just here to talk a little bit about the community center, specifically the pool. As you might be aware, we are going to town meeting and asking for $406,000 to repair the pool and get the pool back up online. The total amount in the warrant that you'll see is $517, I believe, but that part of that is for a pool pack that I won't be discussing today. Today we're just going to be talking about the pool itself and the repairs that are needed. I have on Zoom here, which is why we're a little delayed, Tom from BH+A, who's part of the design team, to help with any specifics around the pool. He's an expert, in my opinion, on pools and anything related to pools. So really quickly, the pool scope, what will get done regardless. So let me back up. So what came up as we were moving through this project is whether we should go with a chlorine pool, it's a typical chlorine pool, or a salt water pool. So that's sort of the decision that will be on the table as we get the bid, after we get the bids. But regardless of that, what we're going to do is we're going to remove the existing pool liner and replace it, remove anything that's damaged or corroded around the pool, so any of the ladders and things like that. They're going to pressure test all of the pool piping. They're going to, like I said, remove and replace all of the existing pool equipment. They're going to do, once the pool liner is removed, there's going to be a bonding test that's done. And then the pool filtration room, they're going to replace existing filters and reconfigure the space in there to make it more user-friendly. And so that will get done. And now what we're asking, when we put the bid out as an ad alternate, we're asking people that bid on the project to submit a price for what a saltwater chlorinator, how much that would cost. And so saltwater is basically introduced into the pool, and then that is turned into chlorine. And so there's a couple of differences, as you can imagine, between salt and chlorine. The biggest, I think, is around maintenance. And let me just see here. Hold on, sorry. I did have a presentation, but I won't hold up. So I think, sorry. I'm really sorry.
While you're looking at that,
I'm sorry.
I just wanted to back up a little bit. So so we were asked about if a saltwater system was better, and since we're replacing these things, whether or not that should be looked at as opposed to the chlorinated system that's previously been in place. And I think it's a hard decision to make without knowing the total cost of both of the systems. But once we get the bids back, what we'll know is the cost to install the two systems. So what Jen's going to talk about today, and Chris is also here, and BH+A, is really about sort of the long-term maintenance, because that's not going to be sort of more visible once we get the bid specs back. And so I think what we're looking for is, I don't know that you're you're going to be prepared to make a recommendation until you have the final cost to install, but to start to be thinking about the two different systems and sort of long term, which one might be a better solution, assuming that the installation costs are not sort of so exorbitant for the one that might be preferable. Because I think what we've been hearing, and I don't know this, which is why we're talking about it today, is that a saltwater system might have more upfront costs, but might have lower costs and easier maintenance. And so that's really what we're trying to understand. And so we want you to all understand what the maintenance of that type of system versus chlorinated system is, so that we can be prepared for when we get the bid specs back and look at the installation costs.
Thanks, Christy. Okay, I'm better prepared now. So there's 4 main categories that BH+A has laid out for us. So water and air quality. Like I said, saltwater pools don't remove chlorine from the pool. Salt is generated into chlorine. Saltwater pools typically feel better on the skin versus chlorine. And so then maintenance, like Christy just said. So there's a little bit more maintenance to it, to this than, and you always need a CPO when you're operating a pool, but with a saltwater pool, you really need someone that understands and knows how to run a saltwater pool. You need to perform daily water quality testing, regardless of whether you have a chlorine pool or a saltwater pool. The pool operator has to check the salt levels daily. Chemical controller probes are periodically cleaned in conventional pools, and the code requires monthly cleaning of saltwater pools when saltwater is used. The saltwater generator must be connected to a timer to turn the unit off in order to avoid over-chlorinating the pool. Pool operator must clean the saltwater equipment's internal plates over 2 months. Cleaning of conventional chlorine pools should be done at least every 2 months. And the pool operator would need to manually add salt to the pool when the salt level becomes below the recommended levels. Life expectancy of equipment. A multi-cell saltwater chlorination system is typically replaced every 2 years. Large single-cell chlorinated units last up to 7 years, and I believe, Tom, you can correct me if I'm wrong, is what we would be hoping for. Replacing a single cell unit would be up to $4,000 to $5,000 every 7 years. In conventional chlorinator, typical chlorine pools have a life expectancy of up to 7 years, and those units cost around $4,500. So Tom, I don't know if you want to speak better about any of this.
Can I just, did that email go to I know we just got it, so did it go to the committee?
I can send it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think it's hard to hear, but when I looked at it, it looked to me like they were not huge differences in the two systems. But so Tom, can you just tell me if that's correct and maybe highlight some of the major differences?
The biggest difference that I've seen when saltwater chlorination has been used is getting the pool up initially and running the way you want it to run. And then once it's operational and the operator is used to it, they run pretty much the same. The additional daily work is not really a big deal. You have to take tests every day anyways. All you're doing now is doing a salt test to make sure you're checking what that is. You have a chemical controller, which is checking the chemical levels of the pool. And again, the cleaning, it's once a month. You have to do it, which is written into the code, cleaning the probes. Typically the probes on a pool chemical controller are done at least twice a month anyways, just to clean off any residual or buildup on them. Again, the labor itself is not significant. Cost-wise for chemicals, well, actually, between chlorine and the salt, and you have the initial cost of adding the salt to the pool, which is not much. Basically rules of thumb is that you have a 47,000 gallon pool, so you're going to have to add about 800 pounds of salt to the pool a year. That translates to about $300. We are replacing, as part of the base bid, we were replacing the open liquid chlorine system that's there now, and we're putting in an erosion system. So there's no handling of harsh chemicals. It's a dry tablet that gets put into a feeder. Again, on that one, you're going to go through about 500 tablets over the course of a year. that's about 800, it's about $500 more than the salt. Not a significant difference. The one thing that you will increase usage on is the CO2. CO2 is used to balance the pH. Salt water has a higher pH than normal chlorinated water or pool water. Again, you already have the CO2 system in place. Your usage might go up, but again, I couldn't tell you by how much at this point, but again, it's not a significant factor. And again, I think we have, because it's a public job and I'm looking at different manufacturers, we have it specified as both a multi-cell and a large single cell. The upfront costs are about the same. It's just that with the single cells, again, they don't all go at once, but you can lose usage of one or two of the cells after 2 years, and they're about $1,000 to replace. And now it could be every 2 years. And again, replacement of the chlorinator unit or say a single large saltwater unit is about the same, 7 years, because you're running this pool 7 days a week, 365 days a year. On an indoor pool, we can't shut the pool filtration down. It's always running. So that's why you just have normal wear and tear. And then also, it's exposed to chemicals and things of that nature. So it's not a big difference. I think the biggest thing is getting the pool up and running initially. I mean, I'm aware of when these saltwater first came into being or into the market. If any with the Longfellow clubs, one here, I'm in Sudbury, there's one in Natick, both put them in, and within a month they shut them down. And what happened was that they needed to get more educated on how they operate, and they are currently up and running again, and they have been for a long time. It was just sort of the initial shock or the initial misunderstanding of how they're run. And again, people, they are used all over the place. So, and again, the one thing I will say that what I have to specify because of code, the equipment has to be NSF certified. You can go online. I mean, the unit, I would suspect that this alternate price will come in anywhere between $15,000 and $20,000 for the equipment in the initial setup. I know you can go on Google and you can find equipment for $5,000, but it's not the kind of equipment that would be used in a pool of the size or of the requirements that might go with the municipal pool. The only reason I say that is I always get questions about, well, I saw this online and it was only X. Well, it's not, you're not comparing an apple and an apple, it's an apple and an orange. Or in most cases, those are really lemons, some of the stuff that they sell. The one other aspect that we're adding to the pool, which Jen did not mention, was we're putting on a cover. Again, the cover is automated, so it's got a mechanical winch on it, so that at night, staff using its motorized can pull up it's an evaporative cover, which will save a significant amount of energy in heat in the pool. It's mandated by code.
I just forwarded the email to each of you individually if you want to take a look at it, and I also sent it to the admin. So.
I've got a question. Jim, in regards to the maintenance that has to be done, is your existing staff able to do this, or are you going to hire people, or are you going to contract out?
Yeah, so our plan is to contract out through bid process a vendor that will maintain the pool. So our plan is that they will maintain the pool, all aspects of it, all maintenance, making sure whether it's chlorine or salt, all of that is taken care of. And they'll also run a majority of our aquatic programs, so swim lessons, water aerobics, things like that. That's our plan right now. We have to move through the process. We'd have to go to bid and all that, but that is our plan.
Yeah, the plan is to have an operator, not have the town run the pool.
But you also were certified.
Yep, I became a certified pool operator. Josh and our program coordinator is also CPO, and I believe there is at least one person on the Board of Health that's a CPO. So we have people on staff that also could, if needed to, were certified to run the pool.
I just had a question. We had seen this on the select board too, I think earlier, some stuff on that, but I'm confused by the 2-year, I think it said for the salt system, it's typically the replacement is 2 years, but the chlorine is 7 years.
I'm going to let Tom talk about this because even on the phone yesterday when we were talking about it, it confused me a little bit. So
and
Tom,
I just think about the cost. I mean, because to me that was like, oh, it's an increased cost if you're replacing the salt every 2 years versus chlorine, which lasts 7.
So just before you
Oh,
start, so we got a memo from the design team, so I'll forward that also so that you can look at it.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So Tom, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about, we were talking about on the phone yesterday, the multi-cell chlorinator versus the large cell chlorinator.
Yeah, correct. There's two types of chlorinators. There's not a lot available at a commercial level, but they come in either multi-cell units so that there's multiple, there's in this case there's 5 cells that are needed for the size of pool, or you get one unit that has multiple elements inside of it. The multi-cells, again, these are running constantly, so you're going to be shutting them. They last up to 2 years. Again, not all will go at once. 1 or 2 of them may go, but you may have that maintenance where you have to replace them. And the unit to replace, retail-wise, is roughly about $1,000 to replace it. In about 7 years, if you go with one single large unit, again, the elements inside that create the electrolysis that converts the salt to sodium hypochlorite will deteriorate, and the whole unit, the chamber has to be replaced, and that's going to be somewhere in the range between today's prices, $4,500 to $5,000. And then a normal salt water, the erosion system that we're using, which involves a tank and a pump and other components of that, you may have to replace the pump in about 7 years. Other parts of it may deteriorate. And again, the replacement of that's the same in the range of today of about $4,000 to $5,000.
Okay, so that's
So
just,
the
those are
multi-cell
just
unit,
different.
the reason-
Those are just different saltwater systems. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes. Yes.
And how do you compare that then to if we went with the traditional chlorine in terms of replacement and timing and cost? I guess.
Well, in the end, it may be about this. I mean, straight up, the larger single unit is more equivalent to the erosion system. The difference is with the cell system is that you may be replacing cells, but the rest of the units you're not replacing. You're almost replacing the entire unit with a large single unit. It's only the components of it. And again, it's not all of them at once. So you may be spreading the purchase of a cell over from year 2 up to year 5 or 6. You're not going to have to go in and do every cell after 2 years.
Okay.
So I think what I'm saying is maybe at the end of 7 years, a replacement cost of components is not that different, if that makes sense.
I guess so. So I guess where mine was going is if we go salt system versus chlorine, the cost, the replacement or the whatever is the same. Is that what you're saying, or what's the difference? I guess in terms of maintenance and salt versus chlorine systems.
I would say that the chlorine, from the equipment standpoint, is a little bit less in terms of what you have to replace the unit. There's a pump involved in it, and then there's other components that can deteriorate. Not a huge difference. The difference in overall maintenance is the fact that you're not checking salt water on a daily basis. You're just your chemical controller is monitoring your water. You're doing your water quality tests. There is a difference though when you have the salt in the water that your maintenance of the surfaces around the pool has to be a little bit more diligent because you have salt, even though it's a very small amount of water salt can create, it's like efflorescence on the exterior of a building. You can start seeing white salt deposits. It can affect or increase corrosion on metal components. Also, too, you have to be very careful about any equipment you replace with a saltwater pool to make sure that the equipment is compatible with salt water, where usually most pool equipment has been designed to accommodate chlorine. Salt is just an additional element that has to be dealt with from a corrosion standpoint.
Thank you.
Tom, if you were the town of Westborough, what would your proposal be if you had to make one today?
Because of the complexity of getting the pools up and operating, and depends on how the bells and whistle goes, I'm a very traditional, the chlorine, I'm more comfortable with chlorine pools.
Thanks.
And I know a number of pool contractors are the same way as well.
I have a
Peter?
couple of things on the whole thing.
Can you just bring the microphone a little bit closer? Yeah.
Are we changing with this work that we're doing on the pool, the depth of the pool? Because I know.
Yes.
At one meeting somewhere that was mentioned. and-
Yeah, I apologize. Yeah, so part of the scope of work that will be done, regardless if we go salt or chlorine, it will be that we're going to raise the depth of the pool up to 3 feet 6 inches. So it's currently 4 feet. So we'll have kind of a shallow end, 3 feet 6 inches, and it'll go into a deeper end, which is 4 feet.
If we were to leave the pool as it is, why would we not just leave the pool? What's the reasoning for doing that, I guess is what I'm asking.
Shallower water, so 3 feet 6 inches is more conducive to things like swim lessons, water aerobics, which is going to be typically what we do there. I'm not saying there won't be any lap swim or whatever, but a majority of the programming that I foresee is going to be swim lessons, water survival, water aerobics, senior aquatic programs, and having that shallower end is recommended for things like for programs like that.
What, you mentioned liner. Are we putting a vinyl liner in this pool as part of this? I'm not sure the word was used, liner.
Yep.
Is it a vinyl liner or is it a plastered surface?
Jennifer?
Oh, Tom, go ahead.
Do you want me to take that?
Yeah, that I do.
Yes.
The
Go
the
ahead, Tom.
existing pool is a PVC liner. It's a commercial grade liner. Again, this one was installed, I guess, when the Boston Sports Club was built in 2006, and there had been some repairs to it. But it's not like a vinyl liner in your backyard. This is a lot more robust. It's a heat welded seams. There's a number of manufacturers, one actually local in New Bedford that makes them. The rest come out of the Midwest. But from a weight, we're just replacing what's there now, and which is actually a PVC liner. It's a felt back, so there's a softer surface to it when you step on it. And then underneath at the floor level, there's insulation. And that's how we're actually changing the depth of the pool. We're just increasing the depth of the insulation at the shallow end. But no, this is the way for an indoor pool that is elevated over another an occupied space. It's either typically done with an all stainless steel pool, which this was not done that way, or it's a pool that you create a concrete bathtub and you put a PVC liner in it.
What is the
I've
life
used
expect-
it before in a number of pools.
No, go ahead. I didn't mean to step on your tongue.
No, it's a commercial grade pool liner, and I've used them. I did it out for a pool at the Berkshire Community College. I've done it at the Revere Hotel in Boston, and a couple other pools where it was the tank hadn't failed, in that the liner provides the longevity that you need. And again, you've gotten close to 20 years out of that, and as long as there's no vandalism to it, really is really what the cause of some of the damage. You're probably good for another 20, 25 years.
Could you repeat that last
The liner
number?
itself, the liner removal and replacement for this project is budgeted at about $75,000.
That's 20 to 25 years is what he said.
25 years, that was what I.
20 to 25.
But what's the actual warranty from the liner supplier?
I'd have to look that up. I have it in front of me, but I believe it's 5 to 6 years for material failure.
Is there a difference from salt water and chlorine on the effect of the deterioration of the vinyl liner? Is one more likely to
You're
deteriorate?
actually, the PVC liner is probably better for the salt water. There's less reaction. When you do a plaster pool or a tile pool, the calcium in the plaster or in the grout can react more with the salt. The salt can have a more corrosive, not a corrosive, but can affect the plaster more than it would PVC.
So, sorry, just say this. So with the PVC that where the liner salt is less deteriorative, better.
Correct. Yeah, correct.
Better than chlorine or better than a different liner?
No, the liner, if you're going to put salt water in the pool, may have a saltwater pool, there's a benefit of having a PVC liner. There's no pool surface that's going to react negatively from having salt.
But I guess the question is, which is more impactful, the salt water or the chlorine on a PVC liner?
Chlorine.
Actually, well, for the PVC liner, neither. They're about the same. I said there was more of an issue with if you had a plaster pool, which you do not have. The water itself is not going to have an effect on the liner.
So maybe I missed it, but what's the advantage of the salt water? Or how did it come up?
It was, one of the selectmen raised it as a question that we should explore.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I've got a question, just,
Wasn't me.
for the public who are gonna be using this pool, what are they gonna experience as far as the difference between chlorine or salt water?
Tom, you feel free to jump in, but I think I think it feels nicer. That's what was in some of those documents. I think it's not as harsh as you go into a chlorine pool, you can tell you've been in a chlorine pool. I think salt water is just, it's less, it feels milder. Tom, I don't know if you want to expand on any of that or what the typical user would experience.
I thought there might be more like allergic, some people might have more reaction to chlorine than salt, but
Possibly.
I'm not
Tom,
an
I don't know if
expert.
there's anything else to add to that of what the average or a user might experience versus salt versus chlorine.
I think the term, it's hard to describe unless you've actually been in one. It's the water, like if you like a water softener system if you have a well at your house, is based on using salt. The water feels different. It's, I don't know how to explain it, but it's a more pleasant feeling for the water. The other issue is that the saltwater pools produce less chloramines or at a slower rate than a regular chlorine pool. Chloramines are it's when the chlorine reacts with byproducts in the pool that it's killing off, and that could become airborne. And that's really what you smell in a swimming pool that's not properly ventilated. You get that heavy chlorine odor. It also can cause problems for swimmers or people using the pool, where you're going to get the heavy chlorine odor. It can irritate your eyes. That'll happen less with a saltwater pool that's run properly versus a pool that's using straight chlorine.
Thank you.
So the experience for the user is better.
So Chrissy just passed out the email, some information, Tom, so I think it actually may have answered my question, but I guess looking at the life expectancy and the things you talked about, if we went to a salt water system, what's your recommendation, multi-cell versus large single cell?
Well, I'm giving you, on the very first one, I'm giving you the worst case, that if all 5 cells failed, the chances are is that you're only going to lose maybe 1 or 2. So you may be spreading the cost, the $6,000, over the course between the 2 and the 7 years. It's a difficult thing when I'm doing public work. I can't specify a specific saying this is, and there aren't a lot of manufacturers out there. There's only a few that make either multi-cell or single cell from a competitive bid standpoint that I'm comfortable using on a pool. So I think we've based the specification on both. We've provided specifications for both types, and it'll be up to the bidder to decide which one he's more comfortable with in using and getting the better number on.
So, what's the big, is the big difference just multi-cell, as you said, you're replacing single cells versus the large will last longer, but you're replacing the whole unit?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Pete?
May I?
Absolutely.
I'm just reading the advantages and disadvantages of the email paper that came to us. Water that is splashed out of the pool or falls off bathers is more corrosive and can result in corrosion of metals and buildup of scale on pool and deck surfaces. So I'm assuming that a chlorine pool doesn't have that disadvantage. That disadvantage.
To a certain extent.
Oh, go ahead. Sure, go ahead.
No, to a certain extent, chlorine will deteriorate metals and stuff that are not properly protected. It's just like it's salt, so it's like similar to salt now that you see on the street. A buildup of it can increase the corrosion. It also deposits of it can it can create like a white scale if it's not constantly cleaned off. So you have a sort of a grayish concrete deck. If a lot of the water was to stand and sit on the pool deck, you'll get like white residual salt will start showing up on the deck, where you don't get that with chlorine.
Okay, that is a concern that I would have over length of time and replacement and/or money that would have to be spent on the saltwater pool that is not factored in today as we change the pool from one thing to another. So that's one of my concerns. The other thing is the higher pH levels in salt water will increase the CO2 usage. Do we use CO2 in the process of making the water fine to swim in? Do we use that in the chlorine pool as well as the saltwater pool?
Yes.
Okay, so that's a wash. Pool heaters need to be upgraded for salt water. The salt water will shorten the life of conventional pool heaters. I'm assuming if we're going to replace the pool heater in part of this, that's part of this money we're being asked for now, is to change the pool heater?
No, the current pool heater is operational. It's not that old, and we weren't going to upgrade it. I mean, we could change it out as part of this, as part of the bid, in terms of if it goes to salt water, and it just changes the internal elements. Because basically your general elements right now are just copper. You end up going with either titanium or stainless steel, switching out the internal components of the heater.
Okay, so there is going to be a cost somewheres on the pool heater. If we don't change it now, we will be changing it at some
Down
point.
the road,
because
yeah.
the pool heater that we now have is not necessarily going to last with
Designed
the
for
saltwater
saltwater.
one. Well, that's the way I take this. I don't know if I'm right, but that's the bullet point here.
Well, the heater now, the pool has been chlorine, so the heater is chlorine.
I'm just saying, we're going to add a cost in here, either now or
Or
down
later.
the road a little bit, because this heater is not, if we go to
We're
salt
not
water.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that needs to be thought about or factored in.
Yeah.
And maybe you guys have, I don't know. I'm just reading this information. And the last one on this is, saltwater pools are more complicated to operate and require professionally trained saltwater pool people, I guess, to maintain them. Is that factored in the cost as we go forward on a monthly, yearly basis? That's just a question. I don't care who wants to answer it.
So I think when
I know you said that, excuse me, I didn't mean
Oh,
to
no,
jump
no,
on you,
it's fine.
that you're qualified to be a pool operator and all that. I'm just saying, by their admission, it's a more difficult, complicated system to operate. Not impossible, just more complicated.
Right.
And when we have things that are on this level, I think complication is not the best way to go.
Yes.
Right. So when we go out to bid for an operator, the vendor that's going to maintain our pool, we would have in the bid that it is a saltwater pool and you need to be experienced working with saltwater pools. I imagine that would be part of the bid.
Yes.
Okay, well, I just, those things concern me because I look around at other things that do concern me, that because they're complicated, they don't get fixed or repaired or looked at enough, and we end up with a problem that's much bigger down the road. This is a town issue I'm talking about, or maybe even a household issue. Anyways, I just need to say that. The last thing is, I thought I heard something said about replacing the salt. Are we talking about the salt water in the pool? We're gonna replace that every 2 years? I mean, I don't know what that really means. Are we just taking the salt out of the containers and getting rid of it in 2 years? I don't know how they work. I don't have one of these.
I think Tom has an answer for that.
I'll listen.
You, you will have to add salt periodically to maintain the optimal salt level in the pool. I believe is like 3,200 parts per million. So that's what is being sent through the saltwater generator to create the chlorine. Just don't use the water drop off of bodies, evaporation. You're going to lose water, which means you're also losing salt. So that's when you have to add salt to it. And again, a pool of this size, rule of thumb, you're going to be adding about 800 pounds of salt to the pool water over the course of a year to maintain the optimal level. Again, with that, salt comes in 40-pound, the pool salt, which has to be 98 or higher percent of purity, is around $15 for a 40-pound bag. So that roughly translates into $500 or less in terms of cost.
So when we say replace
other-
the salt, we're just talking about replacing, we're not talking about the salt that you put in on a daily or weekly basis to maintain this, or are you? I guess I don't understand how that all
I
works.
am, no, it'd be the equivalent of adding on a chlorine pool. I'm adding chlorine constantly to maintain the level of chemistry that I need. On a saltwater pool, I have to add additional salt. So that it's just a normal routine addition of chemicals on a daily or weekly basis, depending on how often it's being done.
Yes, you're not draining water, putting.
Well, that's what I didn't understand.
Yeah.
It's just putting salt in, just like you put a
Salt.
chlorine tablet in. So it's just
You add
salt.
salt periodically
Right.
anyways, and now this is every 2 years
Yep.
you have to replace or add more salt to the,
No, it's ongoing. It's not every.
I think
2
you might be
years.
thinking of two different bullets. So adding the salt as routine maintenance would be similar. Tom, jump in if I mess up. Replacing the salt, maintain just normal upkeep of like how you would add chlorine, you would need to add salt. But I think the 2 years, maybe you're looking at the multi-cell chlorinator. I don't know what bullet you're on, but that's the one where I think it calls out that it could need to be replaced every 2 years.
well,
Do you know which bullet you're?
I have no idea.
Oh,
what I am.
okay.
I'm trying to keep
No, I
out
know
of the
it's a
water.
lot. I've taken a crash course in this, so
It's as simple as
No, I
dumping
just-
a bag of salt.
Exactly.
Into the pool.
yeah.
And I understand, you add chlorine on a weekly, daily, monthly, whatever it is, and you're gonna add salt that, but the replacement part was the part that I didn't quite understand.
Yeah, you're not replacing the salt. You're replacing the unit that turns the salt into chlorine.
Okay. I did pick up that on the other thing. I just
Right.
didn't, replacing salt, to me, means we're gonna take salt out of the water and replace it. So
No.
that's not what you're talking about.
Nope.
Well, that's nice to know.
Jen, I've got a question.
Sure.
In regards to the people that are using the pool, will they pay user fees?
Yes. So the model that we have been exploring is that a vendor would essentially pay us a fee to operate the pool. And anyone that signs up for a swim lesson or anything like that would go through that vendor. But if we wanted to run our own program or event, they would pay fees to us. So the user fee that we would receive, going with the model that we are exploring, would be through the vendor that actually pays us a fee to operate and kind of run their swim lessons and programs out of the pool.
But
That's
what,
just paying us rent.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
what about like anticipated sort of free swim or lap swim?
Yeah,
That's-
so I think that we'd have to explore that. We're trying right now just with our gym to kind of offer a mix of free and paid for programs. So I think I'd like to try to offer some sort of free lap swim, but then if it was more like a birthday party or a rental or something like that, then that would be a fee associated like with that.
Can you anticipate that any of the money that's generated from the user fees would be able to cover any of the maintenance costs of the pool?
Yes, so I don't have the slide here, but I did do some very preliminary estimates that it'd be about $36,000 that we would could anticipate as revenue, with a portion of an additional $30,000 that would be kind of tucked away for maintenance and things like that. Again, very preliminary estimates, but that is sort of what I've forecasted.
Where's the additional 30,000 coming from?
Oh, from the rent that we would receive. Let me hold on if I can.
So the pool
Sorry.
is anticipated to have sort of two revenue sources. So one is the sort of lease of the pool by the operator, and that would be a monthly rent, which is that 36,000 that Jen has put forward, and that's just based on what we know other pool operators have paid for a similar size pool. And then in addition, if we were to run programs, that we would get that fee. That would come through the recreation revolving account. But once that goes into the revolving account, then that revolving account would be responsible for maintenance. So it's anticipated that it would cover, but I think, we're still sort of figuring out exactly what the maintenance would be. But we do believe that it'll be a revenue generator, the pool. And Jen has gotten, I don't know if she already said this, but has gotten a lot of inquiries about use of the pool. So people are very interested in it.
Yeah, so I almost liken it to the golf course. Very
I was
different,
just gonna bring that up, yes.
but the sense that it's self-sustaining, so it's not, and I think the question is probably going to taxpayer. The hope here is running this is that the pool usage will not be a burden or cost to the taxpayer. It will be the
I don't
maintenance and all
anticipate it
that
to
would
be,
all be
yeah.
coming off the revenue generated from it.
Similar to our fields, we collect user fees from that. Anything that major repairs to our fields, we pay for that through our fields account. So similar to this, exactly what Christy said, money that is generated through the pool, whether that's through swim lessons, birthday parties, this rental fee, we anticipate that we'll be able to cover the costs of, maintenance and things like that.
So the initial outset or outlay of money is gonna have to come from the taxpayers for the town meeting.
It's actually coming from free cash.
Free cash, okay. But after that, any additional
taxpayer
money that's needed,
Thank you.
Still taxpayer money, but
any additional money will
not new
obviously be
taxes.
generated from the revenue that you're gonna be bringing in.
Exactly, yes.
yeah, and this, just to clarify, so this was on the capital expenditures plan. The capital expenditures planning committee went through all the lists. This did get recommended for town meeting. It is funded through free cash, which is still taxpayer generated money. It's just not any new money from taxes. It's basically prior year.
It won't have an impact on the levy in fiscal 26.
Yeah, and it won't have impact on individual tax bills.
Right, and that's what, I'm sure people are concerned about is the additional money, 400 and whatever thousand it is. It's not gonna be adding on to the tax levy
Correct.
for the year,
No.
so.
So that 406, just the blocking and tackling on that went out to bid and we're
We're in the
already.
process.
It's out to bid now,
Okay.
and so it's out to bid now, and we expect to get it back. Is it next week?
I'm not
next
sure if
week?
it's next week, actually.
The 17th.
Before town meeting.
Before town meeting, yes.
So that's a that was based on the architect's original estimate. Then the full article includes the pool pack, which is the rooftop portion of that. And because it didn't make sense to have that separate, since it's whether or not if the community is not supportive of the pool, then we don't need to
pool
fund
pack.
the pool pack. So we'll have that, and then that bid has an ad alternate for saltwater, so that we can look at the two options.
So when we talk about a 406 number, there's like a standard deviation possible in the bids that come back.
There's contingency in that number.
Is it possible that that number goes down?
Yes.
Yes, it's
Okay.
possible.
Or you
seems
should
high.
have said, is it likely?
It seems high. That's just what it is.
Yeah, I think I don't know if you sent this, but I can also send it to you if you don't have it. The original scope of work, there's quite a bit of work that'll get done. I think we're talking a lot about salt versus chlorine, but there's the liner, repairs to the pool tank, pool fittings, pool piping, bonding tests. There's a lot that's going to get done for this $406,000, and I'd be happy to send that along as well. It's a pretty good memo from BH+A that outlines the scope of work that will get done.
I would like that. I would like to
Sure.
have that.
Yep,
come.
I can do that.
Christie, as far as the warrant,
Can I
is the
also
warrant
add-
closed with the select
Yes.
board?
Yeah.
Okay, so who's got the article or sponsoring it?
It's a capital planning article. And so the capital planning committee voted to recommend it, and so it was included in the capital plan. Recreation department is the sponsor of the article as a subsection of the capital planning article.
Right, do you need us to vote on anything?
I think the purpose of meeting today was really to talk about the two systems because we want to be prepared for that conversation when the bids come back. I think if you're interested, I think a vote of support of the article is valuable too. So if that's something you would want to.
I have one more question.
Peter, that's why we bring you here, Peter.
Well, I'm glad you woke me up today. This is for Tom, I think. Is there any difference in the effect of chlorine pool and the gases that come out of the water as people swim and move and is in the air on the structure more so than a saltwater pool? In other words, are they equal in the effect of deterioration to the rest of the structure, not just the floors and the liner and the the pool piping and stuff? I'm talking about as the air migrates up out of this and it collects on the sidewalls and the ceilings of this building, is one more corrosive than the other? That's basically my question.
The straight chlorine, again, looking at it strictly with chloramines, it's not, I don't know about the corrosive nature of it. I don't think there's really there's a difference. Air quality though, in terms of the experience of the user in the natatorium space, is much less with a saltwater pool. So you don't get that, like a poorly run pool, you don't walk in and get this bleach smell. If a properly run saltwater pool will have less of an odor than a properly run chlorine pool, straight chlorine pool.
Okay, that part wasn't what I was getting at. I don't know corrosiveness though. On terms of the building structure, I can't see of a way of determining it. I think the pool pack, which is a separate issue, your ventilation needs to be improved in there. And again, that would take care of that issue.
With either.
As long as you're moving enough air through, you're not going to get the corrosion to the structure or anything else there. I mean, the environment, when I walk through the natatorium now and I look at it, there's very little other than some paint deterioration at some edges, a little here and there. It's actually been very well maintained, and it's actually in very good condition, the entire environment, for being open since 2006.
I think Chris has.
I've seen much worse. Yeah.
Yeah. Good, Chris.
Actually, can you talk into
mic, Chris?
just because we're taping it?
I think this question's for Tom. Is there a difference in water consumption between the two types of pool systems?
No, there is not.
Rod?
Not to complicate the question, and I'm sure the answer is it costs more money, but there's other ways to sanitize pools. Ultraviolet, ozone, were any of those explored?
No.
You have an existing you have an existing UV system that we're going to be reinstalling. Except, you can use UV, but you also still have to have chlorine residual in the water. What the UV does is significantly reduce the amount of chlorine that's needed.
So does the UV work with the saltwater pool the same way as it does
Yes.
with the chlorine?
Yes. Yes.
I think, obviously the town would like us to probably take a position on which way we'd like to go, whether salt or chlorine. Do we have any consensus on?
I'd rather wait and see what the numbers are.
Yeah. Obviously, we'll have, if we're going to do that, we'll have to have another meeting prior to the town meeting.
I think, Tom, do you have the date of when the bids come back? I think that they're very close to town meeting. 'Cause we
The
have
17th.
That's what I thought too.
I would just say too, I don't know what the logistics of this is or the methodology, but I feel like the bias would probably be the least expensive, right? So is there a way that we can put forward, so long as things come back as we expect them, that it would be a chlorinated option we would be in favor of? I think all indications are salt is going to be more expensive. And I'm, personal opinion, I'm not hearing great benefits to that. So I would be in favor of just saying chlorinated option if less expensive.
I mean, I would agree. I mean, I think that the thing that concerns me the most in just history of town is when I hear about the complexity, the startup, all that stuff. I mean, we're not pool operators. Yes, we're going to hire someone, you put it on them, but I'd rather do something that's more. I don't say that there are a lot of people running saltwater pools, but I'm more of the tried and true. This is chlorination's been around for a long time. People know how it's used. I think going to the tablet versus a liquid is very smart. We don't want liquids and that in there, but right now my bias, if you asked me to vote today, would say go to the chlorine system. I think it will be cheaper, but it's also more about just, I get scared on the complexity, and you screw it up, the cost is probably a lot more. Then you get into the things, well, we're going to drain the pool, we're going to do all this stuff. We have, other issues that we don't anticipate. Chlorine to me just seems like, and I'll put in quotes, the safer option, but safer not in that, safer of operations.
I would say too, with great deference to Tom, and somebody who knows the space, to hear chlorinated out of him, kind of
Yes.
with the information on hand.
Well, do you want to wait to take a vote?
I'd be willing to vote on the saltwater versus chlorine. I don't know, I'm ready to vote on the pool itself, if that's
Right,
over.
right.
Yep.
We certainly can, so give Jen some direction to go here too. Do we have a motion then?
Why would we be voting? I don't understand why we're voting on this to support
Well,
or
we
not
would support, I mean, it's their final decision, right?
Well, then, I don't
What are you
know why
looking
we're
for from
voting.
us?
I think we wanted to bring it here because we wanted to hear, this, I think this level of detailed conversation, it was only going to happen with this committee. And so I guess we're looking for this committee's recommendation.
Right. This is just a non-binding, this is just
I was just
our
curious why,
preference,
you
ju-
know,
just our preference on what
It's
we would
not-
like to see.
It's not our article
Right.
per se.
Nope.
We will be involved in, I assume, the remodeling or the rework of the building.
Right.
and I think it's really for
just
the-
because it's not, just because some of these articles are not municipal building committee articles, they are municipal building projects. And so some of these things we need your input on.
Yeah.
So
Input and expertise, and I think
Yeah.
that's to the point. This is a conversation we have not had at the select board. I don't think we will go
not into this detail.
not into this detail. That's why it's here.
So basically, Al, you'd like us to vote on whether we would like to see salt or
Chlorine.
That's the
chlorine.
only
All
thing
right,
we're
that's
voting
fine.
on.
That-
We're not
that's fine.
voting
I
on
can
the
understand.
pool, like Rod said, we're not gonna vote on that, we're just voting on salt versus chlorine. Do we have a motion?
I would move the chlorine side of the article.
I would second that.
Seconded by Ian. Do we have any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? 5 in present, unanimous. So Jen, that's our recommendation. And
That's great. No, that's
certainly
helpful.
move
Yep.
forward. And, well, obviously, we'd like to see what the bids come in at too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the bids are coming in on the 17th. Do you have a meeting, or could you meet?
We haven't scheduled one, but we certainly can schedule one for probably the 20th.
Well, yeah. So if you could do it on the 20th,
Right,
we could go over the
Is that
bids.
the Thursday again?
Thursday, yes. I don't anticipate it being a long meeting, but certainly,
It'd be good to
the
see if
result
we can get
of
that
it.
information when it comes out, so we have time to look at it before that meeting.
Right, that's a couple days before the town meeting, so
Great.
Okay.
certainly give us the opportunity to review it. And
When is our next meeting?
the next meeting will be March 20th, 8 a.m. here,
That's Thursday.
Thursday, yes. Well, Jen, thank you very much.
No, thank
Tom,
you.
thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks,
You're
Tom.
welcome.
So if I could make a request, I'd be interested when things go out to bid of getting a copy of the drawings and the bid documents.
Sure, I could send that today. Yeah.
That'd be great.
And we get
I
the
assume, right? I can. Right?
and we can get the initial estimate.
Yep,
I think
I'll
the
send
question on
everything.
cost to
Yep.
send that came from the.
I'll send a few memos.
Architects.
They're really well organized, easy to read. I mean, Tom goes into a ton of detail, which is great. But on paper, it's laid out pretty good, I think. And I can send out the cost estimate breakdowns that BH plus A gave us, and I can send along the RFP that's out there right now.
Yeah, and those
just-
cost estimates is what went through capital expenditures, so
Yeah.
we saw all the detail and the breakdowns on that, so that would be.
So just as a reminder, though, the folks cannot take out the bid without registering. So it can't be shared with anyone that's an interested bidder. They would have to register and go in and get the documents through our
So
system.
this is for us to look at if they're. If
So we
someone
probably
else-
want to mark those not for distribution.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jen, is there an update on what's going on with your programs?
Yeah, it's been great. We hired a new program coordinator, so now there's 4 of us in the department, which has been awesome. He has come in and truly hit the ground running. We have the basketball court is lined now for pickleball, so that has been huge. At the beginning, I was a little nervous of just having the space open for people to come and go, but we've really expanded that so people can come now. There's set times for things, but we have open pickleball play, open basketball play. Every day after school, we have the gym open for kids to come in to play basketball. We're open now Saturday mornings because our program coordinator, their schedule is Tuesday through Saturday, so we have programs running Saturday mornings up until 12. We've done February vacation. We just did a program in the building. We had about 30 kids. And a newer update is we're going to have one of our summer playground programs that are usually held at one of the schools. We're going to host it at the community center. So that's pretty exciting. But if you go to our website, we have a whole section on our website of just community center programs, and it makes the website look pretty ugly, but because the list is so long. But it's been really great. It's been great to have the senior programs over, like strength and balance, chair yoga, getting to know those folks, hearing what they want. It's been great. And we're programming every night until about 8 o'clock with a different program. So it's not open just to come, freelance, but whether it's a fitness program or a kids program. Monday through Thursday, we're there until about 8 o'clock every night. So
Just
we've
on the
really
senior
grown.
side, I was going to ask you to talk about that. We've heard positive feedback from the seniors of just the space there compared to the existing senior center where these things were held, that they really
Yep.
like being at the senior center, and the space is more conducive to what they're doing in those programs.
Jen, in comparison to where, potentially the temporary library is going to be situated, where is that compared to what you have going upstairs for programs?
Yeah, it's on a totally different floor. So there's no connection besides going outside the building. So they'll be downstairs in the old Steinmart, the new senior center, hopefully. So it won't impact us.
How about
programming.
directly above where the library is going to be potentially? Is that the gym or what's up there?
They're really, so the select board has asked them to put any sort of permanent changes in the back part, which is where the gym is and other portions of the upstairs. Excuse me, but the library will likely program throughout the whole first floor until such time if the select board decides to move forward with the phase 1 ahead of them moving out. So really, I think at this time they're anticipating the entire first floor, understanding that. And they're really not making a lot of permanent changes anyway to the space. So,
But to that point, I mean, there could be, I'm sure we'll hear it, because there is, one of the things with doing the building is to put better soundproofing in. We're not doing that for the
Right.
library going in, so there will be sounds from.
I just remember from the
Basketball,
Forbes
pickleball.
building, when the police department was
Yeah.
there, and we had the gym downstairs. I mean, you were hearing that, going on
Yeah.
constantly, and
to Ian's point, it's something that we've talked about for the fit up project, the senior center project, but it's not something that we would be able to tackle sort of with the
So
library.
it's temporary space, it's gonna be something they'll,
right. I mean, to me, it's well worth it for the amount of money we're going to be saving on having to
Yeah.
pay rent.
Yeah.
So if you got a little noise that you got to deal with, you'll have to put up with it for the short period of time, which is looking at 12 to 18 months, I think.
Yeah.
So.
And when they came in, Jen's team bounced some basketballs so they could get sort of a feel of what that
That's what I
sounds
was looking
like.
for
And-
if you've done
Yeah.
that.
And I think too, and I'm always told when I go to the library, because I'm loud, they're like, libraries aren't quiet space. Like, I think a lot of where the gym is going to be more heavily used is later in the afternoon into the evening, where I'm not saying the library isn't open during those times, but during the day, where someone might want a more quiet space, I think the timing will work out as well. But like Christy said, they're fully aware, and I think where it's temporary space, they're willing to live with it for the cost savings.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's definitely it's a great opportunity for the town. Again, we could save a lot of money.
Yep.
So I think
why
it's well
leave
worth
space when we actually have space?
it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
some headphones for people.
Well, most of them probably have them on anyways.
Chris, did you have anything you wanted to discuss? Okay. I appreciate you coming, though. Great.
Al, can I just ask one thing? I think, because we talked a little bit about the pool pack, but I was going to ask Christy just to, again, go over the other article about
Can we
the
ask
community
Chris
center.
to do that?
Yeah, with the units, the replacement of the units on the roof, the rebate process, but also the pool pack we moved into because the pool pack, as was said by Tom, is really about the ventilation in the pool area. So we put that in with the pool repairs. But if the town decides that they don't want to spend money on the pool, which would basically make it operational, then there's no reason to put a pool pack for ventilation at this time. But do you just want to talk about the kind of what we're doing with the roof units and why we're doing it now? Just so everyone's aware and the public hears it again.
Yeah, I think you pretty much summarized it, but I'll add on. So, I mean, basically, we had an opportunity to, well, first off, the assessment that was done prior to the purchase of the building identified that there's things in the building that eventually will need to be replaced. Some of them large capital-sized items, one of them being the RTUs on top of the building, which control the heating and ventilation for the building. Turns out there's opportunities through rebates that exist to the state to replace the RTUs. And there's a substantial amount of funding associated with that, which we've talked about many times. So lots of smart people decided that was a good thing to do, and we jumped on the opportunity to do that. That's what we're presenting to the town meeting, is to replace all of the RTUs associated with the building and take advantage of these rebates and get it done now. And like Ian just said, a component of the entire ventilation system is the pool pack. And we've separated that pool pack out because we don't want to spend money on something that may not necessarily be used right away if the pool itself isn't used. And so basically we're taking advantage of an opportunity right now to get some money that we wouldn't otherwise see, and it's in the form of several $100,000, so it makes sense for the long-term use of the building.
Chris, do I remember correctly, some of the pool pack is not covered under the rebates?
Correct.
That's correct, right. Which is why we've separated it from the article for the RTUs for the rest of the building.
Right.
Yeah, and I think just to reiterate what Chris said, when we did it, we knew they were going to have to be done sometime. They don't have to be done today, but it just makes. I mean, the rebates are pretty unbelievable.
Right, and they have a time limit on
Yes.
the rebates, correct? So it's got to be
We need
done
to do
right
it now.
away.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
Yeah, I have to say I fully support this. The only question I have is, I'd like to see the quote from the vendor and the actual rebate, how that's set up. And the question related is that, are we limited to using the vendor that's made the initial proposal for the replacement?
As I understand it, we are working through basically a third party energy source, which is kind of I don't know that they work on behalf of Mass Save or those programs, but we run through them, and then they work with contractors and whoever does the work on their behalf. It's kind of similar if you've done something to your house, you get an assessment through the state, and then they have a program, and you go through their program, and their program directs kind of where it goes in terms of who does your work. I believe it's similar. It's a question we can ask, but my understanding is that we don't drive who the vendor is. It's the party we're working with, Energy Source, that drives the vendor.
but we can verify that.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks for being here.
All right. Do we have any? We had on the agenda an update on the the Regional Emergency Communication Center, but I don't think there's really anything to add right now, Christy.
I can give a quick update.
Okay.
So we're working through the design. Our design team went to the Business One Stop meeting on February 11th. So they've met with all of our permitting departments. There's a need to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals for the addition of the elevator. And so I believe that's scheduled next month. And that's just, I think you've seen that design already. But that elevator at the back, there's no elevator in the building. So we knew that there would be a need for an elevator. So we're working on that. We want to have another public. All of our meetings are public, but we're sort of having these. In December we had a public information meeting, and we were working to schedule another one of those in the coming weeks, and just to sort of invite everyone to come in and really, view the project again at its current state. Chief Purcell is leading the application to the state for our next fundings. So we knew the first round did not cover the full cost of the project. So now by March 6th, we need to apply for the second application for funding for the project. And then we would expect to go out to bid probably in July, I think is what they're targeting right now for construction. So that project is moving along. And then just sort of in general, we've advertised for an executive director position. And so that's moving forward as well.
Okay. And just so the public knows that this is not costing the town of Westborough anything. It's paid for with a state grant.
Right. The project is paid for with a state grant. And again, we're applying for that second round of funding for construction, for additional construction funds.
Does the state grant pay for the employee?
The state grant will pay for the employee, yeah. Currently. Once it moves to the district, in the future, that'll be part of the assessment that we pay to be part of the district.
It would be paid by multiple towns.
Multiple towns, yeah.
I think there's three
Right now, there's three.
communities.
Yeah.
So,
But we're building it out to take on more, and there has been some interest from other communities.
right, and obviously that'll lessen the amount that each town has to contribute.
Right, and that's one of the we're bringing on the executive director sort of early to help with, policy development, choices in technology, but also part of their responsibility, especially at this time, is to bring on other communities.
Marketing and sales.
We don't oversee that project, am I right?
No, because
Right now, no.
well, yeah, no, because it's a separate. So the Metro West District is actually, it's almost like its own town. It's a completely separate political entity.
Okay, so really, we're just getting information. We don't have any
That's it.
dealing
We have
with.
no oversight on
Right.
it itself. We just get updates.
Right.
Just educate the public.
Okay.
This,
Yeah,
I did
and I
have-
think because it is a town building,
Well,
that we're leasing to
Right.
them. So the town will be getting revenue
Oh,
from the
yeah,
district.
I wasn't thinking of that. I was just, the alteration of that building. I know when I was on the school committee, we wanted to do some work on that building, and we got a lot of pushback from the historical committee.
so,
And I don't know if they're involved in this particular remodel.
Yep.
And you mentioned an elevator. I haven't seen any paperwork on this. I don't know, is there any paperwork that comes to us on this?
No.
Plans or anything? Okay.
there's
that's
not, but
fine.
I think
just-
public,
if this committee is interested in having its own presentation, we could certainly coordinate that, because I think it's fair. It's a fair question. But in terms of your question about the Historic Commission, so there's no required permitting related to the Historic Commission, but the chair of the Historic Commission, who's attended some of your meetings, has attended some of our meetings, and has walked through the building with the chief, and has made the request to be able to photograph the building before any construction work is done. So we are working closely with the Historic Commission.
I think bringing it in front of us would be
Yeah.
helpful again for the community as well.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
If they could bring some sort of a floor plan to look at, I'd be curious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I went to first grade there. I have a lot of feelings for that building.
Yeah.
So I think that's fair, and we can ask for that. But if anyone's interested in the meantime, the plans that were presented, I think in December, are also on the website. If anyone, anyone from the public is interested in looking at that presentation
On the town's website.
on the town's website. Yep.
You mentioned the elevator
Mm-hmm.
and going to the Board of Appeals. I assume this elevator is going to be attached to the back or
Yes.
side of the building?
The back.
So that's why we're going to the Board of Appeals?
We're going to the Board of Appeals related to the M1 zoning, because it's
Oh.
the municipal zoning. There's an avenue to go to the zoning Board of Appeals related to just adding that.
So it's nothing to do with the elevator? It has everything to
Well,
do
it
with
has to
just
do-
the fact of changing the use of the building? in a municipal district.
It has to do with changing the footprint of the building, and
Also,
so
there
that's
is a
why
change to the footprint.
it's just, yes, but it's just the addition of the elevator. That's the only
And
change.
that's required by ADA regulations,
Yeah, yeah.
obviously.
No, I'm fine with it. I'm
Oh,
just
yeah.
trying to wrap my head around it because I remember the difficulty. This was a number of years ago. I can't even remember how long ago it was, but there was a lot of pushback to change this building because of the handicap accessibility.
That's where the school administration was, the superintendent and all that
Right,
was
but
running their
before we
offices.
got into that, we needed to do some, we had a lot of pushback.
Yeah. We've been, we, as a governing board of the district, you know, and we've all asked to retain the look and feel of the building. So really the only addition, well, aside from the parking lot, on the outside of the building, so the entire project will go through site plan as well. But in terms of the actual building, it's just the addition of the elevator, and it will retain that brick, on that portion, on that new portion.
New windows, new roof.
Yeah. I mean, it'll be fully renovated. It'll just, the look of the building will.
Yeah, and for the town, so I mean, it's still a town property, it still has to go through, and that's why it's going to the ZBA, it has to go through all the permitting processes and all that.
Well, I'm fine with all that. I
Yeah.
just was trying to get a feel for the elevator because that was an option back in the old days and it was shot down. So I know it's a new board, new people. I just was curious how that went through, how they handled that. Obviously, they had no problem with it.
Well, I guess,
Adding an addition for an elevator.
who had a problem with it?
The
Historical?
Historical committee.
Yeah.
So I mean, they have a lot of input when you come to historical buildings, and that to me is a historical building.
So there's no permitting required through historical commission. So I'm not
But
sure
to
what
put-
there was before.
No, but they get to say. And they were influential
Okay.
way
Yeah.
back in the day.
Okay.
And
Yeah, I don't know. All I can tell you, so in terms of any authority that they have over the project, I'm not aware of any specific authority. But that being said, we've involved them in the meetings, so they're aware of the design.
Was
No,
was
that's
there
fine.
was theirs about because of it came to town meeting for costs and they didn't recommend it, or was it? Yeah, because I don't think they have a permitting. They can't say no.
they
I
can
mean-
speak negative.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And the
Okay.
negative sometimes with certain groups carries some weight.
Yeah,
That's,
and I
that
think
is true.
Yes, I think the difference here though is that it's not going through.
I
town
understand, it's not
side,
going
so
through
it's-
that process.
Yeah.
No, I understand.
But I think
just
it's
was
a-
curious because they had input when the fire station, when we talked about the fire station, and they said we agreed to tear it down.
Well,
But that's where they have. They
yeah,
have.
we're not
the
demolition. That's a demolition piece, but I think you bring up a good point, Peter, and that's to make sure that we involve them, and we have been involving them. So
I was just curious if they were involved, that was all. I don't know
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I'd go that far.
All right, well, do we have anything further?
Move to adjourn.
Okay, next meeting will be March 20th at 8 o'clock here. All those in favor of adjourning? We're adjourned.
Thank you.